For 300 years, the Gyalwang Karmapas moved freely across the wide open spaces of Tibet, accompanied by a vast mobile practice community known as the Great Encampment of the Karmapas. While they did visit major Karma Kagyu monastic seats along the way, the fourth through the ninth Karmapas spent majority of their adult lives on the move, traveling to wherever they saw opportunities to be of benefit. This unique institution of the Great Encampment allowed the Karmapas to move or stay put at will, setting up camp when conditions were right and continuing on when they were not. Yet, unlike an ordinary camp, the determining factor was not what the location offered to those camping. Rather, it was what the camp could offer to the location, for the Great Encampment was effectively a vast means of reaching out to offer Dharma in whatever place was then the most perceptive to it. As they traveled in the company of the Gyalwang Karmapa, the glorious head of their lineage, members of the camp continued to engage in intensive study and practice. In its heyday, the Great Encampment included within it a full-scale institute for philosophical study, the Shedra, and a tantric college. In addition, a series of solitary retreatants engaged in an intensive meditative practice, each housed in their own one-person tent. At its peak, the Great Encampment was home to a full 500 of such roving retreatants. At the same time, a large number of the philosophical treatises and meditation manuals composed by the Karmapas during this period were written within the precinct of the Great Encampment. Drawing on Tibet's deeply rooted nomadic tradition, the encampment carried all it needed with it as it traversed the valleys and high passes of Tibet. Even when the Gyalwang Karmapa himself might be hosted within a local monastery, the Great Encampment could situate itself nearby without placing an undue burden on the Karmapa's hosts. The mobility of the camp and its self-sufficiency allowed for a high degree of flexibility and spontaneity as well. From the time of the seventh Karmapa, who founded the Kagyu Monlam Chenmo, the Kagyu Monlam itself was not fixed to any particular location as it is today in Bodh Gaya, but was simply held wherever the Great Encampment happened to be situated when the date of Monlam arrived. Yet the Great Encampment was not simply an immense monastery on the move. It constituted a cultural institution unto itself. Every single person who joined the Great Encampment, even if only to serve as a porter, was required to have completed certain minimal practice commitments, such as the accumulation of specific mantras. More broadly, the Great Encampment became renowned for its strict adherence to rules of discipline, which were enforced within the camp by a team of 30 full-time disciplinarians. Almost incredibly, the Great Encampment defied the dependence on meat consumption that is integral to nomadic life on the arid Tibetan plateau. From the time of the fourth Karmapa, who instituted it, until the 10th, who witnessed its final destruction by Mongolian force, the Great Encampment was completely vegetarian. For 300 years, it was strictly forbidden to even bring meat onto the encampment grounds, earning the Great Encampment the epithet of the Buddha Dharma of white soup, with white indicating that it was free of meat products. From the art produced within it, it is clear that the Great Encampment offered a propitious climate for unbounded imagination. The Karma Kagyu lineage in general placed a high value on artistic production, but the Great Encampment offered particularly fertile ground for creative output. The camp evidently included mobile artist studios, for one of the three major schools of Tibetan painting emerged from within it and became known as the Karmapa encampment style. In short, during the 3 centuries it thrived, the Great Encampment served as an enormous, vibrant, and effective site for the production of art, scholarship, and most importantly, realization. Its unique form was profoundly rooted in the Dakpo Kagyu itself, combining Kadampa instructions for enhancing renunciation and bodhicitta with fresh spontaneity yielded by Mahamudra practice.